Have you ever wondered why certain people always seem to attract toxic relationships, even when they swear that this time will be different? Perhaps you yourself have experienced this painful repetition, that feeling that, no matter how much you change on the outside, the same dramas keep coming back, as if there were an invisible magnet attracting the same kind of pain. Well, today I have to tell you something unsettling. It's not you who attracts toxic people. It's your unconscious mind that does it for you. Yes, I know. It hurts. Because it forces us to look where we avoid looking, beyond rational choices, good intentions, and self-help advice. I invite you to abandon, for a moment, the idea that bad luck or fate is at play, and allow yourself to consider a much more disturbing but liberating hypothesis. Your psyche, wounded at some point in your childhood, is still trying to resolve. In the present, what was left unresolved in the past. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here to embrace your pain as a legitimate symptom of the soul. What you call a toxic relationship is perhaps only the visible tip of a much deeper structure, an unconscious attempt to repeat the trauma in the hope that this time the outcome will be different. But trauma, when unseen, only knows how to repeat itself. Are you ready to face this with me? Imagine the following scene. An intelligent, sensitive, and emotionally generous woman. More than once, she gets involved with partners who at first seem attentive, charismatic, charming, and who gradually turn out to be controlling, cold, or even cruel. She blames herself. She tells herself she was fooled. She promises never to fall into the trap again. But months later, the pattern repeats itself. The same type of man with a new mask. What is going on? Can't she see it? Does she like to suffer? No. What is at stake here is a much older and silent force. A part of the psyche that does not think, but repeats. It does not want to suffer, but it is trapped in its own childish and unconscious logic. Perhaps deep in your emotional memory, this kind of coldness or control is familiar to you. Perhaps you remember, on some level, the relationship with an absent father or a critical mother. Perhaps love for this child came mixed with fear, rejection, manipulation, and the familiar, in the language of the unconscious, is confused with safety. Thus, the adult mind becomes entangled in attempts to fix the past through present relationships. Are you beginning to see? The unconscious does not distinguish between time. What was repressed in childhood returns in disguise, in dreams, in symptoms, in repetitions. What was not digested by the conscious mind returns as a pattern. This woman who is trying to be loved is actually trying to be seen for the first time, not by her current partner, but by the father who never saw her, or by the mother who made her feel inadequate. It's as if she were saying, without knowing it, this time I'll get them to love me properly. But she always ends up in the same place, rejected, invisible, hurt. It is the pain of the return of the repressed. And it manifests itself in an almost hypnotic way. You are attracted to the same type of person, even though you know they will hurt you. It is as if something stronger than your reason is in control. And it is we call this the compulsion to repeat. When you repeat a pattern of suffering, it's not because you're a masochist. It's because your unconscious is trying to turn the trauma into a narrative, to say with your body what your mind has not yet understood. Each new toxic relationship is actually a poorly addressed request for healing, a plea for someone to finally see it, hear it, assimilate it, as no one has done before. But here's the problem. As long as your conscious mind doesn't realize this dynamic, the pattern will continue. You'll keep expecting from the other person what was missing in the beginning. And you'll keep choosing the wrong person because they're unconsciously playing the same role as the person who once hurt you. That's why I say, it's not bad luck. It's not you. It's your unconscious mind. And it doesn't want to destroy you, Dot. It wants to be heard, Dot. And how do you listen to the unconscious? Not with your ears, but by paying attention to the signs, to dreams, to patterns, to symptoms. Dot. Every time you say, "Why does this always happen to me?" the unconscious smiles, because this question, asked with pain, is also an opening, a beginning of listening. Dot. So I ask you, what is the pattern that repeats itself in your relationships? What is the feeling that comes back, regardless of who you are with? Do you feel abandoned, ignored, belittled? And at what point in your childhood did you feel that way? You don't need to remember facts. You just need to recognize feelings. The body holds what the mind has forgotten. Dot. And the love that hurts you today may be just the echo of a distorted love that you have learned to accept as the only one possible. But there is a way out, and it starts with awareness, with the courage to look inward instead of outward, with the willingness to recognize that what you call toxic people may just be the mirror of an unresolved emotional bond. And in that mirror, there is an invitation, not to blame yourself, but to free yourself. There is something deeply disturbing about realizing that our closest bonds may not have been freely chosen, but determined by emotional programming we didn't even know existed. You think you're in charge of your love life. You think you choose your partners based on affinities, values, or chemistry. But beneath this conscious surface, there is a much older scene that guides your decisions, a scene you don't remember, but one that shapes everything. Let me tell you a story. Imagine a boy named David. He grew up in a home where love was conditional. His strict father only spoke words of affection when he got good grades or behaved in an exemplary manner. His anxious mother made him feel responsible for her emotional well-being, silently demanding that he be her little counselor. For David, love meant deserving it. Love meant striving. It meant pleasing, caring, enduring. That boy grew up. He became a sensitive, generous man with an immense need to be accepted. But without realizing it, he also got involved with people who made him feel inadequate, demanding, emotionally unstable, or distant partners. Relationships in which he had to prove himself all the time. Why? Because in his unconscious mind, that was love. That's what he learned. Dot. Do you understand what that means? The unconscious does not seek what is good for us. It seeks what is familiar. And if, in childhood, love was accompanied by demands, fear, or rejection, that is exactly what your unconscious will try to repeat in adulthood. Not out of cruelty, but out of a childish hope. This time it will be different. This time I will be loved the right way. But it won't be, because the unconscious does not seek resolution, but repetition until the conscious mind intervenes. And where does toxicity come into all this? It's the symptom. It's the cry of the unconscious saying, "Look at this." Something in you is still trying to resolve old pain with the wrong people. When you attract narcissistic people, for example, it's not because you're stupid or weak. It's because, perhaps, a key parental figure in your childhood was narcissistic. Maybe you learned the hard way that you had to please others to be seen, keep quiet to be accepted, disappear so as not to get in the way. And now, every new relationship becomes an attempt to get that same person to finally see you. But this character never changes. It just changes faces. The one who has to change is you. Not in the sense of becoming someone else, but in the sense of looking inward with new eyes, realizing that you were never the problem. The problem was what you learned to call love. Dot. So before you ask yourself, why do I attract toxic people? Ask yourself, who was toxic to me when I was vulnerable and needed to call it affection? You'll see the contours begin to form. And then something powerful happens. You begin to separate what is desire from what is pattern. You stop feeling guilty for choosing badly and begin to realize that you didn't choose. You just repeated what you knew. At this point in the analysis, something crucial usually happens. Resistance, the ego, the mediator between our desires. And reality fears losing control. It resists. It says it's not okay. That maybe it's the other person's fault. That maybe it's better not to touch that past. But I tell it, healing doesn't come with forgetting. It comes with revelation. As long as you don't name the source of the wound, it will continue to shape your relationships. And what you call bad luck in love is nothing more than a symptom of repression, of what was repressed because it hurt too much. But nothing that has been repressed remains buried. It comes back. It comes back like a strange dream, like a silent discomfort, like a relationship pattern that you swear you don't understand. It is the return of the repressed, and it has a mission, to bring to light what has been condemned to. The shadows. Do you feel, for example, that you have to take care of others all the time? That you are only loved if you are useful? That you have to fix your partner, save them, carry them? It's a psychic story, a childhood script that repeats itself. Perhaps in your childhood, you took on the role of emotional caregiver for a fragile adult. Maybe you felt that your existence only had value if you negated your own needs to keep the other person going. And now you're doing it again. Not by choice, but out of loyalty to the child you once were. This is one of the most mysterious and powerful forces of the unconscious. It is loyal. Loyal to the silent pacts of childhood. Loyal to the roles we take on to survive. Even if those roles kill us a little inside. And when you try to break free from them, something strange happens. Guilt. As if you were betraying someone by freeing yourself. Have you ever felt guilty for breaking out of a toxic relationship? That's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that unconscious loyalty is unraveling. That a new self is emerging. A self that no longer wants to repeat, but to choose. That no longer wants to heal the past, but to build a present. And that takes courage, because it requires giving up the illusion of control. It requires accepting that true love does not come with suffering attached. And that the pain you feel today is not because of the person who left, but because of the old wound they touched. The good news is that you are not doomed to repeat it. The unconscious is powerful, but it is not tyrannical. It transforms when it is listened to. And listening begins with a simple, devastating question. Whose love has hurt me the most? Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to walk away from someone who hurts you? Even though you know the relationship drains your energy, that their presence makes you sick, you hesitate. You give them one more chance. You justify it. You put up with it. You suffer in silence. And deep down, you're ashamed of not being able to leave. But what you call weakness may actually be a defense mechanism working silently. The ego, the organism that tries to balance the impulses of the ID with the demands of the superego and external reality, is also a builder of defenses. When it is hurt, it protects itself as best it can, creating stories, denying evidence, distorting perceptions. Not to deceive you, but to spare you the pain of facing truths that are too unbearable for an unprepared conscience. Imagine someone who grew up hearing that they weren't good enough, that they needed to deserve love, behave in order to be accepted, hide their pain so as not to be rejected. In order to survive, this child develops mechanisms such as repression, denial, and rationalization. They adapt. They learn to smile even when they cry inside. They learn to please, to care, to avoid conflict. And this adaptation, functional in childhood, becomes a prison in adulthood. Because now, every time someone treats her with contempt, her ego says, it's okay, they've just had a hard day. Every time she feels ignored, her mind justifies it. I'm too demanding. Every time she suffers, she blames herself. I must be doing something wrong. But that's not maturity. It's defense. It's the ego trying to maintain the fantasy that if she does everything right, she'll finally be loved the way she needs to be. This fantasy is a remnant of childhood, omnipotence, the illusion that if we're good enough, the adults around us will change, that if we try harder, love will come. But the truth is cruel. The love we lacked then cannot be compensated for now. And the more we try, the more we get caught up in relationships that only repeat the original frustration. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't heal someone else's pain"? Well, I'm telling you, you can't heal the love that hurt you in. The past and the present, unless you face that pain head on, within yourself. And that brings us to a crucial point. INDIVIDUATION. Jung gave this name to the process by which human beings become who they are, separating themselves from inherited scripts, social masks, and unconscious repetitions. It is when we stop living according to what is expected of us and start listening to what truly inhabits us. But individuation is not an act of rebellion. It is a process of mourning. Yes, mourning. Because to become who you are, you have to bury who you learned to be in order to survive. You have to give up the child you liked so that others would like you. The teenager who kept quiet to avoid fights. The adult who gave up on themselves so as not to be alone. And mourning hurts. Because it means giving up the illusion of control. It means accepting that some people will never change. That some relationships were toxic from the start. That sometimes the best way to love is to walk away. But only in the emptiness left behind can something new be born. And this is where many people give up. Because emptiness is scary. Because for a while, nothing seems to make sense. No one understands. You feel alone. But this loneliness is the cradle of something new. It is where you begin to hear something you have never heard before. Your own voice. At first, it is timid. It says simple things. You deserve a rest. You don't have to please me all the time. It's okay to say no. But soon it grows stronger, and it begins to guide your choices with firmness. Not through anger, but through clarity. No longer tolerate what you used to tolerate. You no longer beg for affection. You no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself. And curiously, that's when the other person, the one who benefited from your submission, begins to act strangely. They try to manipulate you. They say you're different, that you're selfish. But you're not selfish. You're whole, and that scares those who have become accustomed to seeing you fragmented. Understand this. The more healed you are, the less tolerant you become of what has hurt you. Not out of arrogance, but out of love for yourself. And in this love, a new way of relating is born. No longer out of necessity, but by choice. No longer seeking salvation in others, but offering presence. Fulfillment. Truth. You no longer have to repeat yourself. Now you can create. Create bonds based on reciprocity, on respect, on real desire, not on the need for validation, but to do. This, you have to free yourself from the character you have learned to be. And that starts with a symbolic gesture. Silence. Silence in the face of those who manipulated you. Silence in the face of the need to justify everything. Silence that says, I no longer need to prove anything. This silence is the boundary between the old self and the new, between repetition and creation, between the unconscious in control and the awakened consciousness. Are you ready to cross it? Perhaps you have already experienced it, dreaming about someone who hurt you, reliving scenes in your dreams that you should have forgotten, or feeling a strange pain when you wake up, as if something very old had been touched. Dreams, my dear, are the royal road to the unconscious. It is where what has been repressed returns, but not in a straight line. It comes back disguised, camouflaged, in symbols that, if deciphered, reveal truths that your waking mind would not dare to admit. Imagine someone who dreams of an abandoned house, dark and full of closed doors. They wake up distressed, without knowing why. But if they dare to interpret it, they will see that the house may represent their own psyche, a place where there are denied parts of themselves, trapped feelings, memories that still hurt too much to see in the light of day. Perhaps behind one of those doors lies the first abandonment, the first rejection, the first time they learned that love brings pain. And now, in the present, their mind is repeating that plot with different actors, but with the same script. Because until we open those inner doors, we will keep trying to perform the same play, hoping for a different ending. But there is something even more mysterious in relationships. Transference. Yes, transference. That psychological phenomenon that causes old feelings, stored since childhood, to be projected onto people in the present. You think you love your current partner, but in reality, you are loving or hating someone from the past through them. You are trying to resolve with them what was left unresolved with your father, with your mother, with that caregiver who one day broke you inside. That's why you feel so disproportionately affected. That's why you suffer so much. Because deep down, it's not just him who's gone. It's the father who never stayed. It's the mother who never listened. It's that child inside you who once again has been left alone in the dark. And as long as you don't recognize this, you continue to give the other person power that they don't even know they have. You continue to expect them to heal wounds that are not theirs. And this will inevitably lead you to the same place: frustration, abandonment, guilt. But there is a turning point. And it begins when you ask yourself, what exactly am I looking for in each relationship? Is it companionship? Is it affection? Or is it reparation? Because repair is a trap. You don't need anyone to heal you. You just need to understand where your pain comes from and let it find a new destination, no longer in repetition, but in creation. And here, let me bring up a symbolic image. Imagine that every toxic relationship in your past was like a cracked mirror. You looked into it trying to see yourself, but all you saw was distortion. Your fragmented parts, multiplied, deformed by the reflection of trauma. But now, with awareness, you can break that mirror completely. And instead of trying to recognize yourself in it, start building your image from what you feel inside, not from what others reflect back to you. This is the transition from reflection to identity, from absence to presence, from the unconscious in control to creative consciousness. But be careful. The healing process often provokes resistance. You begin to move away from old patterns and feel a kind of emptiness. This is called self-estrangement. It is that feeling of no longer recognizing yourself in your old attitudes, but not yet knowing who the new you is that is emerging. It's like crossing a bridge in the fog. You can't see the other side, but you know you can't go back. This is the most delicate point in the analytical process. And it's where many people give up. They return to their old relationships, to the habits that numb them, to the pain that, although destructive, is at least familiar. But I beg you, hold on to this emptiness. Feel it. It is fertile. It is the womb where a new self is being formed. A self that no longer seeks to be loved in order to exist, but exists and therefore can love. And then something extraordinary begins to happen. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. People who once seemed irresistible now sound dissonant. The dynamics that held you back now seem laughable. And love, love, ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a meeting. Place. You begin to recognize healthy relationships because you are no longer trying to resolve unconscious pain in them. You have heard it. You have embraced it. You have integrated it. And finally, you are free. Free to choose who to walk with, not out of fear of being alone, but for the pleasure of sharing the journey, free to say no without guilt, to say yes without cancellation, to be whole where you were once fragmented. And above all, free to realize that it's not about the other person. It never was. It was about you, about your unconscious trying to tell you, for years, that the pain that hurts you the most doesn't come from today, but from when you didn't yet know you could protect yourself. And now you know, perhaps now you feel something different, a restlessness, an uncomfortable clarity, as if, for the first time, the pieces are starting to fit together, not just as ideas, but as inner truths. And at that moment, an inevitable question arises. What do I do? With all this now? The answer is this: you don't. You allow yourself to feel, because the first step in healing is not to act. It is to embrace what was once rejected, to give a name to what was once a void, to recognize that the pattern that hurts you is not a curse, but a message, an attempt by your psyche to be heard, and listening is the beginning of freedom. See, dear, everything that is not brought to consciousness will be experienced as destiny. Until you take ownership of your inner scripts, you will live believing that the world is against you, that love hurts, that you can't trust anyone. But that's not true. It's just your unconscious story repeating itself like an echo, waiting to be heard. And when you listen, something magical happens. The echo becomes a voice. Repetition becomes choice. The pattern becomes the past. But be careful. Healing doesn't mean you'll never be attracted to a toxic profile again. It means recognizing that attraction and choosing differently. It means realizing, in time, what's old disguised as new. It means saying to yourself, I know this road, and I don't need to travel it anymore. That's emotional maturity. That's self-love in action. That's psychological autonomy. And little by little, this new attitude begins to reverberate in your life. You stop tolerating crumbs. You stop losing yourself in relationships where you have to beg for respect. You begin to desire a different kind of presence, no longer one that triggers your trauma, but one that embraces your integrity. And this desire, now conscious, is the beacon that will guide your choices. Because if you listen, you protect yourself. Those who understand choose. Those who heal change the magnetic field of their soul. You no longer need to attract toxic people, because now you understand. It wasn't you. It was your unconscious trying to resolve an old story with the wrong characters. But that story can end here. Or rather, it can be rewritten. And to do that, you need to walk through the portal of self-knowledge. You need to recognize that the other person only activates what already exists within you. That no one rejects you more than you do by not listening to your emotions. That no one hurts you more than your blind repetition. But you also have to recognize that no one can heal you except yourself. By diving deep inside yourself, listening to your dreams, paying attention to the symptoms, having the courage to look at the child who was once left alone and say, I'm here now. This adult presence, internal, consistent, loving, is what you were looking for in all those confusing relationships. But it never went away. It has always been there, dormant within you. Wake it up. Wake up to the fact that suffering is not punishment. It is a call. That pain is not weakness. It is information. That a symptom is not an enemy. It is a messenger. And what it means is simple but transformative. You deserve love without fear, presence without tension, connection without struggle. But that starts with you. It starts with looking within, with your yes to the truth, with your no to the old script, with your intimate decision to stop repeating what tears you apart inside. And if you ask me, Freud, how do I know I'm healing? I'll tell you. You know you're healing when you start listening to yourself. When you allow yourself to feel without censorship. When you honor your emotions as guides. When you recognize that you no longer need to save anyone to deserve love. When you look in the mirror and no longer see the reflection of need, but the face of someone whole. This is the true miracle of analysis, transforming the symptom into a symbol, pain into a portal, repetition into freedom. And now, at the end of our symbolic session, I leave you with one last invitation, not as advice, but as a call from the soul. Stop asking yourself why the other person hurts you, and start asking yourself why you still need them to feel alive. Because when you no longer need to repeat it, the unconscious will let go of the reins. And then, at last, you will be free to love and be loved from a new place. A place where pain is no longer language. Only memory. And life can finally begin again. Inside you. If this video has struck a chord with you, leave a comment. See what was once invisible. It's more than just a phrase. It's a commitment to your consciousness. It's your psyche finally being heard. Now share this content with someone who deserves to wake up. Maybe you're the mirror that's missing in someone's healing process. Until we meet again in the place where pain becomes truth.